Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Owner's Box After Dark. I am your host, Mark Farinella, the former assistant sports editor, Patriots beat writer, sports columnist, and irreplaceable soul of a newspaper in Attleboro whom I just don't think I'm going to mention tonight, and I'll probably tell you why in a little while. You're probably thinking, geez, is it that cold in those studios there? Of course, Fulton Pond Studios in Mansfield, Massachusetts, directly on the shore of a wonderful pond that probably I could clear with a 3-wood. It's not that cold inside here, although it tends to get that way sometimes. But I wanted to show off my new gear. Yes, indeed, the Owner's Box has gear. The hat, the Owner's Box After Dark. And the coat, the Owner's Box After Dark. These have been made for me by Logo Enterprises of Wallingsford, Connecticut, I think is where it's from. I'll check on that at some point in time. There's only one of the coat. Now, this is not going to be the Saturday Night Live gift for 5-time hosts. No, this is a one and only. But the hats I have made up several of them for multi-time guests, and they've been sent out to a lot of people already. So I hope they'll be able to put it to use in this potentially cold winter that we're going to have here in New England. And I think they look great. You know, you can see the logo; it shows up nice. Love the little fuzzy ball at the top there. They were a nice neutral color, so you can wear it with just about everything. And I hope they will enjoy it. Nothing like a little brand identification here. But I got to tell you, it's a little bit warm inside here. So, yes, I am going to shed the excess clothing here. Don't get excited. This is as far as it goes. And also, let me get the hat off here. I'm going to have some serious hat head here, but I'll replace it with another hat before we get started. Actually, I went to physical therapy earlier tonight for my knee, and so that's why I come in here with this 19-year-old sweatshirt. Can you believe this sweatshirt? This is a Super Bowl 36 sweatshirt. So this shirt is 2 years older than most of your high school seniors. And yes, it was one of the many items I got at that very Super Bowl that was played back in 2002 at the beginning of in February. Of course, post 9/11. So I sat in the Louisiana Superdome the whole time, looking up at the roof, waiting for that jet to crash through. Thank God it never did. We got a lot better about security in this country right after the 9/11 attacks, and that's why we were able to pull off a major sporting event with over 80,000 people in the stands, and history to be set, but the Patriots winning their first Super Bowl championship. But still a very scary moment or two leading into that. This is the 30th episode of The Owner's Box After Dark. I'm going to get quicker on the trigger. This was kind of one that I threw together at the last minute because I knew I had to do something in the wake of the Patriots' big win over the I'm going to call them the San Diego Chargers just for laughs to get it out of the way. The Los Angeles Chargers, of course. And now, of course, everybody in New England thinks they're going to a Super Bowl. But I think that I knew I wanted to do something. They're playing the Rams tomorrow night, tomorrow being Thursday, and maybe by the time you hear this, it will be today. But this is a very important stretch for that team, and I think that all things considered, if they can come up with a W against the Rams, that would be a huge, as they say, quality victory, and something that could really turn the course of the season. But I just still don't think it's going to happen. All right, first things first. Drink of the night: Starbucks cold brew. Nitro Cold Brew. That's why it's got that nice little foamy top on it. I love it. I've had 2 eggnog lattes already today. I don't know why, but I just love this stuff. No wonder I can't fall asleep at night. Yes, very, very good. Very smooth. Also, and of course, the mood candle I promised to change. And here we go. Evergreen Mist is definitely going to make this place smell like Christmas. Of course, if you walk into a Home Depot anytime after September 15th, it smelled like Christmas already because they had their Christmas displays up already. How ridiculous was that? So, but, hey, we move on, right? We move on. Now we're just hoping, we're counting the days until the inauguration of Joe Biden as President of the United States. As we come on tonight, the U.S. Supreme Court, even though it's been loaded with Donald Trump's toadies, they refused to hear a lawsuit that would overturn was it Pennsylvania or Georgia? One of the 2 states. Would have overturned the vote in Pennsylvania, I think it was. So they've refused to hear that lawsuit. There's a new one out by, I can't think, somebody in Texas filed it to negate the votes in 5 states other than Texas. Yeah, that's not going to go too far. So it's almost done. We almost have a new president. We're almost going to come out of this finally and feel better about our lives, I think. Also, a very interesting tidbit today. Now, I'm one of those people, and I've mentioned this before. I want to get the coronavirus vaccine as soon as possible. I mean, so far, since we started worrying about this in February and March, I've not had any symptoms. I've been tested twice. I've been good both times. So, but, I mean, how much longer can I dodge fate? I mean, in a matter of weeks, I'm going to be out there again covering high school basketball, and we do have something to mention about that after our commercial break. But I just think that it's going to be, I want it. I know there are people who are scared about it because it was rushed into production. But right now, you've got already 2 major pharmaceutical firms that say they're 95% effective. You have more that are just on the verge of finishing their testing, and they're all saying that it's looking good. So, hey, I'm willing to try. Now, granted, does this mean I'm going to grow a 3rd arm out of my forehead, because of something that wasn't tested and we don't know what the side effects are going to be? I think they've got a pretty good idea of how things are going to line up with that. But still, I'll try it. Hey, look, again, my next birthday comes in January. I'll be 67 years old. Pre-existing conditions, a whole list of them that would take me an hour to recite here. I want to have it. I know I won't be one of the first groups to get it. Understandably, I think the plan is to give it to healthcare professionals and first responders and people like that to start with, and I agree with that. These are the people on the front lines of battling it. And I don't know if you heard, but in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the governor, Charlie Baker, earlier in the week announced that there would be restrictions put on hospitals for elective inpatient procedures. So let's say if you wanted to have Botox or something, and something happened and you had to be there overnight. Now, that's probably not a good example. Botox, they squeeze it in and that's it. But I mean, if you were having some sort of elective procedure that was going to keep you in the hospital, they're going to say, no, we're going to put a hold on that right now because we need beds for COVID patients. Whereas if they have to go into my knee again, and I do have an appointment coming up in another week, I think it is. And if they have to go in again, that won't be a problem because this is it was day surgery to have the knee the first time, and if they have to go in and do something else to it, that would be day surgery again, I'm sure. So something like that would not be a problem. And if I hadn't to have an appendectomy tomorrow or got hit by a car, there would be no problems. They'd find beds for people that are in those situations. But they are getting a little bit tighter on those restrictions right now. And it's scary. It's scary for what the future of certain other selfish pursuits that for all of us we would prefer to see in in the coming months, as opposed to being locked down again. And I know, listening to my friends in the restaurant industry, they are, they're feeling the pinch right now because, again, there are more restrictions on that. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, I'm going to get started with the Patriots a little bit sooner than I have in the past couple of podcasts, but I'm going to take a slightly different tack first. I'm not going to immediately get into the game. Dan Shaughnessy, the veteran columnist of the Boston Globe, tweeted from his home, I'm assuming, I don't think he was in Los Angeles for the game, that Jim McBride, the veteran beat writer for the Globe, for the veteran Patriots beat writer, although he was only there a fraction of the years that I had been there. He was the only Boston area media representative at that game. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible, because for those of you who don't know, the Patriots have had one of the most populist, one of the largest number of print reporters covering a team in the entire NFL. I mean, it's funny because you can go down to New Orleans and there may be 2 or 3 guys for print operations that cover the Saints on a regular basis. Many other cities have just a small smattering. But here, in a 6-state region that basically I would say the 4 or 5 closest ones to Foxborough would send multiple people to Patriots games and send them on the road as well. And I think that's been incredible, and I was fortunate to be a part of that for 41 plus years. And I traveled for, I would say, about 30 of those years on the beat. And Jim Donaldson, the former columnist for the Providence Journal, mentioned that you may have heard that Bill Belichick, the Patriots coach, with the win against the Chargers at the new stadium, SoFi Stadium, that gave him victories in 50 NFL stadiums, a total of 50. And Jim said that he had been in 56 stadiums where NFL games had been played during his career, which actually started a year after my career. Now, again, the Journal got to go to a few other games more than I did here and there, and that's a pretty impressive number. I did make it to every NFL city, and I counted up all the ones that I went to, and I came up with 48 different stadiums. And I'll add 49 because the Steelers had a home preseason game against the Patriots at Montreal's Le Stade Olympique, Olympic Stadium. It was in Rod Rust's only year as the head coach of the Patriots. So I drove up there, and I was actually covering it for the Associated Press. And so that made it 49. What I remember about that trip was it was the first time in my life I had ever gone to a, shall we say, gentleman's club at the invitation of a woman. A female writer who was on the beat said, "Hey, Mark, let's go to," whatever the club's name was. I can't remember it. It wasn't. It was a different one. It wasn't Le Club Super Sex, which if you're familiar with Montreal, you know that one. But this writer, who shall remain nameless for the time being, asked me to go. And I said, sure, why not? I mean, now, there's no backstory to this. We went, we had some fun, we drank a few beers, we had laughs, and we saw the women dancing, and then we left. And then we just walked around the city for a while and then met up at the game the next day. It was a lot of fun, and I have known this person for a long time, and I still consider her a very good friend. But I'm not going to mention her because that's one of those little things that I just think I'd like to keep between us. Okay. Anyway, the what really strikes me about the Patriots situation is that you look at 15 years ago, even just 15 years ago. Let's go to early in the Belichick tenure, okay? And, I was thinking about how many writers would actually go to a road game. And I came up with a pretty impressive total. All right, here's what I came up with, and this is subject to correction or change or whatever, but I would think that this would be your average. Now, maybe not necessarily all the way out to Los Angeles. Sometimes papers kind of held off on going that far across the Mississippi. We did eventually too, but for the time that I was on the beat, there were times that I went to any city, wherever it was, as long as I could get the fare for $200 or maybe close to that, and I was really good at doing that. But so here's how it would kind of figure out during those periods of time. So between the papers, the Globe would send as many as 5 to 7 people. Now that includes columnists, an editor perhaps to oversee things, and the numerous writers that they would have. And this is not Super Bowl. Believe me, the Super Bowl, they sent 20 people. They just found them everywhere, and they just sent them out to cover everything. But that would be about the regular number. I think for a regular season game would be 5 to 7. The Boston Herald would send maybe 4 or 5. Slightly less resources than the Globe, but still very aggressive in trying to get that reader. Providence Journal would send 2. The Worcester Telegram and Gazette would send 2. The Hartford Courant, strangely enough, did you know? Have you heard that this is the longest continually published newspaper in America, and they are closing their main office in Hartford? Everything will be done remotely by them in the future, and that's a state capital. I mean, that's incredible. Anyway, they would send 1. The Springfield, well, they had many names, but by the end of it all, it was the Springfield Union. No, Springfield, well, I can't even remember what they are, but the Springfield newspaper would send 1. Maybe a second one on occasion. They might send a columnist to a big game as well. But their beat writer for many years was Carlo Emilio, a great guy, a great friend, still with us, thank God. And not still writing, happily retired in the town of Agawam. Then you had Attleboro, moi. You would have Brockton, 1. Quincy, 1. The world-famous Ron Hobson, one of the 2 touchdown twins. You'll remember them if you're a Boston person. The Lawrence Eagle Tribune would send maybe 1 or 2, depending upon the situation. The Nashua Telegraph in New Hampshire would send 1. The Cape Cod Times would often send 1. New Bedford Standard Times would send 1. The Portland Press Herald in Maine would send 1. Concord Monitor in New Hampshire would occasionally send 1. The Lowell Sun would send 1. The Lynn Item would send 1. That's pretty much all of them that I can remember. And you also had a couple of people who were not necessarily affiliated with newspapers, but they were like people who would get sound clips and send them to major networks. And they were usually operating on their own, but they were paid as freelancers. And so you usually had 2 of them that were on a lot of the road trips early. So that gives me a total of about 32 people, print or connected to print type reporters. And that doesn't count the representatives from the Boston, Providence, and maybe the occasional New Hampshire TV station, maybe Connecticut as well. Doesn't count the photographers that would be the still photographers that would be on. And then the reporters from cable news operations who became far more prevalent later in my tenure as a beat writer. But so you might have as many as 50 to 55 individuals all drawing credentials to a game and trying to get parking passes at the same time. And I can tell you the current state of affairs of the of newspapering and all that has probably made the job of Patriots Vice President Stacey James, the fellow in charge of media relations, it's probably made his job a heck of a lot easier than have to deal with a bunch of angry people looking for parking passes. And I was one of them for many years. I can't believe that the pandemic has a lot to do with it right now. I mean, a lot of people aren't sending anybody. The Patriots also are making available players after the game, and Coach Belichick as well, on Zoom, so you can see them from the comfort of your home and write whatever you have to write. So basically, you're getting about what you would have gotten if you were in person. I'm not sure you would get everything, because an enterprising reporter with a little bit of gumption will not just settle for the big group interviews that happen in a locker room whenever somebody sees someone talking and then everybody goes over there and they all like storm that player. Sometimes you can pull people aside, and I used to go into visiting locker rooms, or to, let's say if I was in Denver, I would have gone into the Denver Broncos locker room and try to talk to Tom Nalen, the former Foxborough High School standout, and Boston College, of course, who became and I still think he should be considered for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but he was John Elway's center for many, many years, and certainly I think 5 or 6 Pro Bowls, maybe more, I can't remember. Now remember, the Broncos used to have a ban on talking to reporters, and if one of the offensive linemen was caught doing it, that person would be up before the kangaroo court and probably have to pay a fine of some sort to the after-season beer fund or whatever. But I know Nalen took some shit from Mark Schlereth, is that his name? The guy who's on one of the networks. One time when I walked in there, and Nalen, right off the bat, he said, "Hey, he's from my hometown paper. He covered me when I was a kid." So they gave him a pass on that. Another guy who I'd go into to try to talk to would be Anthony Sherman, who is still the fullback of the Kansas City Chiefs. Certainly was, I think, a 5th-round draft choice of the Arizona Cardinals originally, after a great career at Connecticut and certainly a dominant career in the Hockomock League. So, and Anthony's still going strong for the Chiefs, and that's always good to see. And he was always cooperative as all heck. I mean, I always appreciate guys like that. And sometimes teams would help out more too. Like the Seattle Seahawks did a really good job of getting a connection for me for an interview with Lofa Tatupu. Remember Mosi, of course, Patriots fullback, and of course Lofa was his son, who was the outstanding quarterback at King Philip, went on to play linebacker at the University of Maine, then at USC, and then, of course, up to Seattle. And they would always be very helpful. And, of course, he was always helpful, too, and I certainly appreciated that, too, because sometimes, even though I've covered the pros for a long time, you still get looked at as like, yeah, you're that guy from the small paper. But they had read me growing up, so they knew what I did for a living, that I understood what was going on, and so they were helpful, and I really appreciated that. To this day, I do. So, but I can think of, that was because we had an aggressive beat here in New England. We had people who were, and you could walk up to somebody, and try to just like draw them into a conversation where everybody else was talking to somebody else, and you do it really quickly before somebody in that big pile over at the other end of the locker room would see you, and then suddenly 25 people race over, cameras, and they're knocking over each other to get to you. No, you have to try to plan your way out if you're going to get something different than everybody else. And I'll admit, I didn't do that all the time. I mean, it was difficult. Sometimes it was a long day, and you just sort of said, I'll get whoever's talking. And, of course, under the Belichick, in his reign of terror over, in regard to the media anyway, sometimes you just had to settle for the 1 or 2 guys who would talk because everybody else was scared to death to talk to us. So, but yeah, I was very, very, very disappointed to see that it's boiled down to that, and this was just Jim McBride and nobody else. I'd like to think there were a few other people around there, but he may have well been that, and it might have been it. The Projo has been sold. They're down to bare bones in their newsroom. I'm sure they didn't send anybody out. I think Worcester's off the books for them too, as well. And of course, papers like my paper, Brockton, Quincy. We haven't been on the road for a while because of the, just the downturn in the newspaper industry. So that is where it's at. All right. I'll be taking a quick break here for one of our happy commercials from the land of the rising sun. And when I come back, we will talk about the Patriots' big win over the Chargers. See you in a second.
UFO.
Love.
Nation Yakisoba UFO.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Owner's Box After Dark. Episode 30 being recorded on December 8th. Wow, 2020. December. Where did this year go? And it can't go soon enough. All right. I want to get into, of course, the Patriots game. And quite the game that it was. And I just dropped something on the floor. By the way, I ordered a new printer for my office yesterday. And it's a long story, and I won't go into it completely. By the way, I don't know if you can see this, but I have put the old printer here, and there it is right down there. Yes. Okay, and you can see on top of it I have a printout of my logo. This is the Owner's Box logo that goes on all of the popular podcasting platforms, and that's for the audio, of course, the audio version of the Owner's Box, and the next one of that will be episode 30 as well. Yes, it will be, and we'll have some words about that at the end of this. But the I bought it on Amazon, and it's a newer Epson, and it has those big tanks that you fill up with ink, and that makes the ink last a little bit longer, even though you spend a ton for the for the bottles of the new ink. But I liked it, and it's all Wi-Fi, no cords, does everything, scans, prints, voice recognition, all sorts of stuff. But in the setup process, and it takes forever to set one of these things up because you have to go through the initial setup program. And now since it's computerized, it's not you just don't plug it in and then start printing. So you have to go through all these steps to get it ready to go, which includes charging the ink and printing out a test page to make sure it's doing what it's doing. That's where I made a crucial mistake. I did not check that first page that came out that had all the tests. You know how it makes those little lines and all the different colors? And I didn't see the yellow, but it didn't register. I was in the office room, which is Studio B. This is Studio A. And I didn't have the lights on. It was a little dark. It was late afternoon, and I had not turned the lights on yet. So I looked at the page and said, yeah, it looks fine. So there's a box that shows up on the little screen on the printer itself that says, did you see all the colors? And if not, check the box of which you didn't. I just, boom, right by it. That was my mistake, because I went through the entire process and then hooked it up via the internet to my desktop in that room where all these videos are edited by as well. And I started printing out some pages of things that were supposed to be in color, and they weren't. And they were actually missing, the colors were off, and I couldn't figure it out at first. Let me show you an example. This is one of my scripts from the Owner's Box. And as you can see, it's a nice, cute little, kind of a orangey, I don't know what color you'd call it. I'm colorblind anyway. But, that's a kind of a logo box. Then I do all my questions underneath that. Well, I just did one on the printer tonight, and as you can see, even though it's the same style and the same template, the yellow that's in this one did not print out on this, and as a result, it's a different color entirely. And so I went through all sorts of processes. I tried to I tried to do, I need tonight's script. I tried to reload all of the software. I tried to do everything that I just like start from scratch. But once you've done that initial setup program, you can never go back to it. So I could never go back and check that box that says, I don't see yellow. And I went on and checked their online owner's manual, and you cannot, if you ask the question, why is one color not printing? You cannot find an answer for it anywhere. They have all sorts of other possible answers and stuff like that for like skipping lines and little gaps and all that kind of thing. And you clean the heads like you would with any printer and all that. No, it can't be answered. So I had to wait till today to talk to the tech people out in California for Epson. And after I explained everything, and when we went through about a half hour of, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? And they just said, you know what? We're going to send you a new one. We have a hardware problem with this one, obviously, which is kind of a shame because I filled up all 4 of the tanks with ink, but it still works for just black and white stuff. That's fine. I'll use it until the new one comes. I actually just got an email that said my new one is on the way already, so that's good. So once I get that, I will pack up the old one, send it back to them, and I'll have the new one. Hopefully it'll work fine. In the meantime, this one still works. It's about 11 or 12 years old, and it's starting to get a little bit slower. So we'll hang on to that for a while and use it in here in the studio. It can come in handy. So that was how I spent my last 2 days. I'm sure you're excited about that. Patriots winners 45-0, and I believe that is the second largest victory by the Patriots in a shutout over an opponent. The other one was a 59-0 win over the Titans, and I remember that game well because there was snow on the ground. I think it was like close to Halloween or something like that, about 9 years ago maybe. And everybody was catching touchdown passes in the snow, and I think the Titans were wearing Houston Oilers throwbacks that night, if I'm not mistaken. But this is the second largest margin of victory, and it all came amazingly with Cam Newton throwing for only 69 yards in the air. Amazing. But they got 165 yards rushing. Damian Harris had 80 yards. Newton had 49. He rushed for 14 times. And he is 48 yards, I'm sorry. And he is closing in on Steve Grogan's team record for rushing. And I don't have those numbers here with me, but Steve still holds the yardage record. Steve also holds the record for touchdowns in a season by a quarterback, and that's 12. Newton has 11 right now, and still has 5 games left? No, 4 games left. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're 6-6 right now. So I think that's a record that Grogs is going to lose, unfortunately. But it's just absolutely amazing that the leading receiver on the Patriots was James White. He had 3 catches in 4 targets for 1 yard. Gunnar Olszewski. I'll get that right. Okay. I'll just call him Gunnar from now on. I don't want to mess that name up all night long. He was actually the leading receiver in yardage, 1 for 1, 38 yards. And that was a touchdown. And I think that was that from Stidham? No, yes, it was. It was in the fourth quarter. It was the pass from Jarrett Stidham, who actually got some playing time in this game. So many things that you could just say that, look, this is a full Patriots thrashing of an opponent. And yes, the Chargers suck. I thought they were supposed to be better than this. Everybody was talking about their quarterback, Herbert, as if he was Herbert or Hebert. Let me check on that. I don't even know these guys anymore. This is my problem. Herbert. Okay. Everybody was saying like he was the new Wunderkind who was so impressive. They suck. I'm sorry. The Chargers suck. They're just awful. And yet this is the kind of way the Patriots used to win games that they were supposed to win. Olszewski had a 70-yard punt return in the second quarter. Newton had 2 rushing touchdowns. Devin McCourty a field goal was blocked, and he picked it up and recovered it and ran it back 44 yards for a touchdown. Even N'Keal Harry got a touchdown pass. Oh, my God. And, wow, they did everything they needed to do. Special teams were impressive in this game. Certainly, but, boy, the Chargers were awful. I mean, I expected better from them. And maybe it's probably a good thing that they don't have any fans in that stadium right now, because they would have no fans anyway. Nobody would be interested in seeing them if they're going to keep playing like this. And the whole premise of building that giant, magnificent stadium out there in Los Angeles was to not only keep the Rams happy, but to, take care of the Chargers and get them out of their situation in San Diego, where really, to be honest, they should still be there. They really should. I mean, the Los Angeles Chargers lasted for 1 year at the beginning of the AFL, and then they were the San Diego Chargers, and they should still be the San Diego Chargers, if not for the greed that runs through the entire NFL. And the owners want this, they want free stadiums, so they got their wish, and now they basically suck as a team. So, but still, pretty impressive victory. The Patriots scored. They outscored the Chargers by, let's see here. I'm looking at my phones. We get the game book is on this, and that's really cool because that has all the stats. They outscored the Chargers 21-0 in the second quarter for 28-0 at halftime. They've got that up to 35-0, and then, of course, 45-0. It's a shutout. I already said that, didn't I? Wow, that's just it's just awful. I mean, here's the deal as we see it right now. The Patriots are, of course, as I said, 6-6, and they are back on track on my course to 8-8 that I set at the beginning of the season. But that's going to be difficult to follow, and I'll tell you why. First, again, they've got the Rams playing Thursday Night Football. They've stayed out there. They were actually at UCLA, which made Matthew Slater so happy, because Matthew Slater, of course, is a product of the University of California at Los Angeles. And certainly I'm glad for him that he got a chance to come back in what may be close to his last season, and just be able to say, hey, hi, everybody. I'm going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, probably as a special teamer. I wouldn't doubt that. And he'll join his dad there. How about that? Wouldn't that be great? And but this is not going to be an easy track. They're a little bit banged up. They got a lot of people on their injury report. Their secondary took a big hit in this game, and so that's going to be a little bit of a. I think the Rams are a better team than the Chargers by far. They're not. The Rams having their usual kind of up and down thing, but at home, Patriots on short rest. I don't know. It's going to be tough. I'll be watching the game as well as many of you, I'm sure. And so we will have our summary of it. You'll have already seen it. You'll just have to listen to me talk about it in the next podcast, which will probably be coming on Saturday or Sunday, I think. And we'll have a little note about that shortly. But as on the path to 8-8, that's troublesome. Now, I had them losing to Miami, which will be the next game a week from this coming Sunday, and that is down in Miami. So it's a bad time of the year to play them. It's a bad time to go down there and play them with the changes. Although, having been in Los Angeles for the better part of a week, maybe that won't be so bad. They will be flying back here, but then they'll fly back down. But I think that the Dolphins are playing pretty well right now, and again, the Patriots' history is that they don't play well in Miami. But that might just be a Tom Brady thing. And by the way, the Buccaneers are 7-5 now, only one game better than the New England Patriots. And there's all sorts of rumors about Brady being upset. And did you see the report where he apparently bought himself a yacht? And that yacht came after he got something like $900,000 from the government on one of those COVID relief things that he shouldn't have been able to apply for because he's a multimillionaire and so is his wife. but he applied for it for the small business loan because of TB12 is supposedly a small business. Come on, give me a break. I know people who are dying for help like that, especially with small businesses, and it goes up my culo to think that Brady can buy himself a yacht. Now, I'm not saying he spent that money on the yacht. He's got plenty of money to spend, and if he doesn't have it, Giselle certainly does. It's very strange. But anyway, the Buccaneers are 7-5, Patriots are 6-6. Who would have thunk it? Yeah, especially the way the Bucs were loading up for that alleged Super Bowl run to be played in their own home stadium. Now, they play the Buffalo Bills at home in that next game after Miami. I am not convinced that the Patriots can win that one now. They did play the Bills pretty well up there in Buffalo the first time around, and yet the Bills are kind of getting the feeling right now that they have a chance. Josh Allen's having a great year. I think they are really getting that feeling that they can proceed on and win the AFC East. And as far as I'm concerned, that should be their only concern right now. Worry about the conference first. Don't think ahead, because they're in no place at all to think ahead. I mean, let's face it, what have they done since Jim Kelly and Marv Levy? Since those years, the Bills have been a joke. And so for them to be thinking, we're going to go to the Super Bowl, wait till they win a game in the playoffs, all right? But in the meantime, win the division, get that done. Maybe I'll believe in you then. All right, so we shall see what happens. But then they got to come up here to Foxborough, play the Bills. Now, we don't know if we're getting bad weather or anything like that. That would help, but the Bills are a bad weather team too, so I don't know. And then of course, they wrap up the season on I think it's the 3rd of January, playing the Jets at Foxborough. Did you see how they got the big lead in their last game and then just pissed it away at the end? I just love the Jets. They have to be the worst franchise in all of professional sport right now. The worst. I mean, I might even add MLS. I don't know anything about who's in the MLS, except I know the Revolution lost when everybody was saying they were going to win the title. They're the Buffalo Bills of MLS, let me tell you. So, I don't know. Right now, the course would seem to lead to 7-9. And then, of course, it would be the first sub-500 finish for a Patriots team since 2000, Bill Belichick's first year as head coach. And to think, some writers have actually been floating the balloon in the last week or so that says Belichick should be the coach of the year. You know, all right, if he has turned this around and got the Patriots in to sniff a potential playoff berth after their horrible start, I'd say he's done a good job. Coach of the year? No, I won't buy it. But that's how it goes here with this current media corps. These guys who are covering the team, they're so Twitterverse. That's what they are. They respond to the instant and not to the big picture. They look at something and say, oh, something happened. That's going to mean everything's going to happen this way. And then they have to go the exact opposite when the Patriots lose a game. They say, oh, that's it. They're done. They should suck. You know, they should now, try to get the number 1 draft pick or whatever. You know, it's like, goes hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. They need a veteran presence somewhere around in that beat. Now, I don't want to come back. No, I've made that clear. I am happy in retirement. But really, they're too excitable, and I think a lot of that has to do with the TV types. But I see it in the younger writers now, and there aren't as many writers on the beat anymore. So now you got the guys who are working for the radio stations and the TV stations who are writing for their websites. They're not on-air personalities, but they are writers for those websites that are trying to take over for newspapers, although they're finding out that that's not as profitable as they thought it would be either. So it's got to be clickbait. It's all got to be, we need clicks. We need people to click on the story, say something outrageous. It's a shame. So I look at the 31, 32 people that might have gone to that game 15 years ago, I can guarantee you the people who are reading those stories were far better served than what passes for the media does today in terms of covering maybe even all of the professional sports in Boston. And with that, we'll take another break, bonus commercial night, and we'll come back right after the commercial. Hello again. Welcome back to the Owner's Box After Dark. Come on, Mark. Show some resonance after dark. Yeah, I'm tired. Okay. Big news today for the folks in Plainville, Massachusetts. Your North TV sports coverage is pretty much finalized. At least I hope so, anyway. I got the word today from my boss and good friend, Peter Gay, the executive director, or what? I don't think he's got that title. Whatever he is, the guy who runs North TV over in North Attleboro Community Television. And just to explain, we cover King Philip Regional High School sports for the town of Plainville, because Plainville subscribes to North TV for its local cable programming. And I would like to think that at some point, and who knows, maybe the pandemic will make that happen, but I'd like to think that somehow that can extend to the other King Philip towns. And of course, the King Philip Regional High School is the culmination of a 3-town regional school district, the towns of Plainville, Rentham, where the school is, and Norfolk. And but one thing at a time. I'm happy to work for them. I'm happy to do play-by-play for basketball, and I'm adding hockey. Oh, that's going to be fun. And so we've got a schedule so far which has 6 basketball games and 3 hockey games. 3 girls basketball, 3 boys basketball, 2 boys hockey, and 1 girls hockey. And I think there may be more once King Philip finishes its schedule. The schedule has not been completely finalized yet. And Peter likes to usually do things evened off. So I would assume that we might get maybe 1 more hockey game out of it. But, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'd like to think that we'll be able to do this all, but then again, here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, like in most every other state in the Union, we're having trouble with COVID-19 just like everyone else. In fact, as a state that had bottomed out the curve back in the summertime, and we were all feeling pretty good about that, our number of cases have shot up like crazy, and we're all kind of still holding our breath about the post-Thanksgiving bump that might happen in terms of COVID cases. So it's gotten to the point, too, where I mentioned earlier that Charlie Baker, the governor of the Commonwealth, had already established that there would be restrictions on hospitals performing inpatient elective surgery. Another thing that happened, and I think this happened earlier today, was that he just decided to send the state back to what he calls Phase 3, Step 1 of the reopening process that began back several months ago, actually. What that means is that they're going to close some indoor performance venues, some certain high-contact indoor recreation facilities. I would assume like boxing gyms or maybe other, kind of things like the dance. Who knows? Maybe dance recitals. I don't know. And then they're going to cut down capacity limits to about 40% of a building's capacity for virtually everything else, including stores. So your local supermarket will have to have somebody stationed at the front of the store with a little clicker so he'll know whenever you have to tell people, wait till somebody leaves. I've only run into that happening to me once since the beginning of the pandemic. And, hey, if that's what the case may be, that's what the case may be. I mean, there's nothing much I can do about it. But that would include, as I said, retail outlets, offices, gyms, libraries, museums, houses of worship, and movie theaters. Now, throughout all this, there has been no specific mention of high school sports. Now, that's been an entirely different process, and we've mentioned it here several times, so I'm not going to go through it all, but it went through kind of like a 5-step process where the sports themselves, the individual sports committees had to come up with ideas about how they would limit contact and cut down on things that would promote the spread of COVID-19. Then those had to be approved by a COVID-19 task force, and then they had to be approved by the board of directors of the MIAA, the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. And once everybody got on the same page with that, basically the state has signed off on it, and they're feeling good about it, I guess. So there could be some changes to that in the days to come. And I scanned the internet earlier tonight, and there are a lot of people who are following this story a lot more closely than I am because they're actually involved in the daily coverage of it. And they're the consensus was that it does not seem like this will have any effect on high school sports except possibly crowd size. And I could see that being a concession that would have to be made if they can still keep the games going. Some leagues have already decided to just bar all fans from their games. Some leagues have decided not to play, or some cities anyway. I know the city of Lynn has, their public schools will not have basketball or hockey this year. Many of the Mayflower League schools will not, but that hasn't been officially announced. But Tri-County Regional High School in Franklin, which is one of the North TV towns, I've covered a couple of Tri-County games, football games, in fact. They can't have anything in their gym because their gym is used right now as socially distanced learning areas. So Tri-County's announced there will be no winter sports. I really wish that they had thought maybe a little bit differently about that. I could see maybe going to a place like Mass Premier Courts. If it could be open for the games only, you could probably have had at least games. Let the kids play. No fans. Whatever few spectators they would have to be there, maybe occasional media guy, the people on the scoring table, let them play at least. Let them have some games and continue it. But if their whole league may not have anything anyway, so it may just be a moot point in that regard. Now, the Massachusetts Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, which set up a bunch of guidelines right at the beginning of this whole process, they're supposed to have a new set of guidelines coming out this week. And from what I understand, people are kind of anticipating them. And say the word that I've gotten is that the crowds at, say, like the Hockomock League, our league down here, could be limited to just 2 adults and maybe 1 sibling of a home team member. So if you got 15 kids on your team, say, you could probably have 30 parents and another 15 people for 45 total. And then you add a few other people in here, and that probably keeps them around the 50 number, which in the case of the Mansfield High gym, I think that would be maybe about 10% of the full capacity of the place, maybe a little bit more than that. But we'll check on that. In fact, I have now configured this board here of mine that I can actually take phone calls in here, not live during the show or anything like that, but I can have people calling in by phone. So I could probably get an interview with somebody who would know something about that, and we'll try to do that. But anyway, hoping for the best, let's just tell you what the North TV schedule, and this is for the folks who subscribe to the Plainville channel in Plainville, which is North Attleboro Community Television's operation. Boys basketball games, they're doing something smart at KP. They're going to play one boys-girls doubleheader a week for the 5 weeks of the regular season, and I like that. I think that's a good idea. The teams are only playing the same teams in their own division. So the Hockomock League has 12 members. So you might be in the Kelly Rex, the large division, and King Philip is. They have 5 regular opponents. So they're going to play each of their opponents twice for a total of 10 regular season games. And then they are going to have what they call the Hockomock Cup tournament at the end of that. So they'll have a couple more games added on at the end of the year. But instead of going on the Tuesday-Thursday schedule, they're going to play 5 doubleheaders at KP. So all their home games will be in these doubleheaders. And we at North TV will be covering Sunday the 10th of January, and those are 2 games against Mansfield High School. The boys will be at 1 o'clock and the girls at 3 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. And then Sunday the 17th, we will televise the boys and girls games against Franklin. And on Sunday the 31st, the last day of January, we will do the 2 games against Attleboro High. So that will be myself and my friend Alex Salaki on the play-by-play and color, respectively. And Alex has done 2 games in a row for me at the Mansfield Roundball Classic before, so he'll be ready to go. Couple of 67-year-old guys, really just pounding out all those words for you. But that's going to be a lot of fun. I like the idea that we're going to have those, because mainly that means I will not lose dates for the other people I want to do. I want to do Mansfield home games, boys and girls. And I also want to do maybe 1 or 2 Foxborough games this year. Normally I would do more, but with the schedule cut down from 20 or 22 games to just 10, that does make it a little bit more difficult. Now, I don't believe these games are going to be live streamed anywhere. I don't think we have that capability at North TV set up, at least inside King Philip yet. There is talk that maybe the games I do at Mansfield High later this year, including in part of that schedule, will be live streamed to Mansfield Cable Access. Now, once I have a firm schedule on that, I'll put it up here, and that'll be for both boys and girls basketball. Now, another twist this year, and I'm going to do some hockey games. I got to watch some games somewhere to kind of get a feel for it. But I think if I have a good analyst, I'll be able to muddle by on the play-by-play. I will not take the Jack Edwards approach, and of course, Jack Edwards was a guest of mine on the radio, on the audio podcast, and he mentioned to me that he likes to do practically a radio type of call, which is to be right on top of the play instead of gabbing mindlessly. I don't know if any of you saw this game, but when Providence was playing Indiana, men's basketball, beginning of the year, that Maui tournament that was played in Asheville, North Carolina. Bill Walton was one of the announcers for ESPN, and it was the worst I've ever heard of any kind of a play-by-play and color situation. I don't remember who the play-by-play guy was, but he just let Walton talk about anything that popped into his head. Some people said they thought Walton was high. I don't care. I don't care if he was or not. But they never talked about the game. We talked about everything else in the world that was going on. And if I was actually sitting in my office room typing on something, and I was trying to do some work and listen out of one ear and try to figure out how the Friars were doing. And I couldn't follow it. I had no idea unless I watched the game. That was taking me away from the work I was trying to do. So finally I got smart, and I put my phone on the WPRO feed with John Rook and Joey Hassett, and I should have listened to that the whole way, because if you want to listen to a Providence College Friars game, those are the guys you listen to, John Rook and Joey Hassett. You have to. I've committed the mortal sin right from the start, but again, I was trying to multitask, and I thought I was going to get some help from ESPN, and I absolutely did not. terrible. I'll never do a game like that. But I'm not as good at hockey. I know I'm not. So I'm going to have to rely a lot on my friend and football partner in crime, Glenn Farley, formerly of the Brockton Enterprise. Covered the Bruins at the beginning of his career. I forget that sometimes. He's not a fan of the Bruins either, but he did cover many Bruins games many years ago, and ended up being a longtime football beat writer for them. But he will nursemaid me through at least 3 games. We are planning on doing on Monday the 11th. We will be covering the boys hockey game against Franklin at the Franklin Arena. On Monday the 18th, we will be doing the girls hockey, King Philip girls hockey game against Canton at the Foxborough Sports Center, which is right near where I used to live in Foxborough. And on Wednesday the 20th, we are scheduled to do a game against Oliver Ames, King Philip boys versus Oliver Ames at the Foxborough Sports Center. Again, KP doesn't have its hockey schedule finalized yet, so I wouldn't be surprised if we pick up another game or two going forward. But in the meantime, that will be my debut as Fred Cusack. or Bob Wilson. What a great voice. What great pipes he used to have. South Boston Savings Bank, always the leader. I remember those commercials he used to do. Nobody could call a hockey fight better than Bob Wilson. For those of you who are around in the 70s around here, Bob Wilson just had this just great deep voice, kind of almost as, Gil Santos didn't even have the pipes. Gil didn't even have the pipes, the longtime Patriots voice that Bob Wilson had, but they were very close. And I'll tell you, nobody could describe a hockey fight better than Bob Wilson. Bob Wilson just really was great at that. Back when I was in college, I drove from Mansfield, to Evanston, Illinois, usually over the course of only about 21 hours. I was young. I could drive all night. I used to love driving. And in the early stages of that drive, I would tune in to WBZ Radio, 1030 on your AM dial, and I would listen to either the Bruins game or the Celtics game that being played that night. So the voices of Johnny Most, the longtime and notorious Celtics announcer, and Bob Wilson on the Bruins would keep me awake on that first stage of the trip. So by the time I got to maybe, let's just say 2 hours to the end of the Mass Pike. So depending on the game, what time I left, the games would start usually around 8 o'clock in those days. So I would say if you get me around Syracuse might be the time the games would be over, perhaps. But since WBZ had that monster signal after dark, so you could be heard in 38 states in Canada. So I would just drive out there and then listen to whoever was on the overnight show after that while I'm driving, just to keep me entertained. But you would never have an interruption in the signal, and you could just follow the game out there. And those guys just kept me on the highways of America going out to school, and I'll never forget that. And I think that I learned a few things. Certainly Bob Wilson, again, I wasn't that much of a hockey fan, but because the Bruins were the hot thing in town at the time, I listened to them, and I enjoyed listening to the descriptions more on radio than I did on TV. Of course, Johnny Most was Johnny Most. Maybe I'll devote a whole show to his memory at some point in time. But for those of you in the area, you know what he sounded like. I can't even begin to approximate it. Let me work on my voice for about a week. Maybe if I smoke 6 packs of cigarettes before one of the shows, I can probably come up with Johnny's gravelly voice. But that's when these guys on the radio were picture painters. They would entertain you as well as describe the events to you, and I think I learned a few things from that. At least I hope I did. So that's what's up in that regard. Looking forward, unless Charlie Baker pulls the plug entirely, and again, you're going to have Christmas. You might have another spike. Oh God, I hope people finally get the point. I'm looking forward to getting behind the microphone again. As you can tell, I love doing this. And let's hope for the best, okay? I want to see some ball. Okay, and some puck, too. As we wrap up here tonight, I would first remind you that you can send me an email. I remember last week I forgot, and I had to put a little, was it on this side? I think it was on this side. I had to put a little box up in the corner with all the addresses and all that kind of stuff. So I will do it more traditionally tonight. You can reach me. You can first see my website where I have all of these archived, all of these podcasts, whether it's audio, video, thought wave, who knows what's going to come in the future. Also, a lot of great content and little tidbits of information you could probably use. It's at www.theownersbox2020.com. Make sure you check it out. 16,000 people plus have. And if you would like to send me an email to let me know how I'm doing, send it to theownersbox2020@gmail.com. You'll see it. And, of course, snail mail is still available, and I'm checking that box at least twice a week. Hopefully we'll get something in there. And yes, you can definitely send me snail mail at the Owner's Box, Post Office Box 272, Mansfield, Massachusetts, 02048. And I'll tell you what, as some measure of maybe I'm just trying to inspire you folks to write me. If I can get a letter in that mailbox from a viewer, the first one I get, I will send you one of these spiffy, magnificent, the Owner's Box After Dark hats. They're terrific. These are quality hats. They keep your head warm. Nice little brand identification. That's my logo right there. Spend a little money on them, but you got to spend money to make money, right? So if you can send me a letter that says you listen to the Owner's Box After if you listen to the Owner's Box After Dark, you will get one of those hats in return. But it's only the first one because I only had 12 of them made, and I've already sent out about 7 of them. So I've got to keep it down for somebody who might be a upcoming multi-time guest. That's what I got these things printed up for, was for multi-time guests. So please do that. And again, before Christmas, so it'd be like, I guess it would be, I'd have to check the box on December 24th. I'm not saying postmarked. Get it to me by Christmas. So postmark it by December 21st. How's that? So you got some time. If you watch the first one I get, and I'll announce it, make sure you definitely do that. I have a guest scheduled for my next podcast. The next podcast will be coming up this weekend, and my guest will be now she's become a veteran, the coach of the Adelphi University women's basketball team, Missy Traversy. You remember her from Bishop Feion. You remember her from the University of Maine, and from a million columns I wrote. Missy is starting up a new season down there in Garden City, New York, and you may recall that her team had made the NCAA Division II tournament last year. We're going to host games in Garden City, and that was when the NCAA pulled the plug on all of its tournaments, and her team was heartbroken. She's got she's got 3 players, if I'm not mistaken now, that are veterans from our area. Julia Strachan, Emily Michelli, and Sarah Dio, the former Attleboro High School star who transferred down from Southern New England. Southern New Hampshire, SNHU, Southern New Hampshire University. Yes. So they'll be starting up after the new year, but we're going to do a quick little interview for our next podcast, both audio and video, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Please, folks, use the hand sanitizer. Wear the masks. I was going to have a mask sitting here, but I forgot to do that. Do everything you can to get these numbers down. Come on. The vaccine is coming, but it's not coming soon enough. So let's do what we did over the summer. Let's try to get things down. Let's try to preserve basketball and all that kind of stuff. And we'll all be so much happier when this is done. Believe me, I know I will be. So on behalf of Hugh Hefner and all of the folks here at Duck and Cover Productions, I want to wish you, there won't be much in the way of holidays. I wish happy birthday to my broadcast partner, Alex Salaki, and my basketball broadcasting partner for North TV. He will be turning 67 by the time you see this. Hey, we're still here, Fox Man. We're still here. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight, everybody, and please stay happy, stay healthy. Good night, everybody.